Hello and welcome to another episode of Suddenly Single. Today with me, I'm very excited. I've got an amazing author, Kathy Lette. She has written 20 books today. One of my favourites is called How to Kill Your Husband and Other Handy Household Tips.
I just wanna get out of here.
Hi.
Hello.
Ready for some girl talk?
Yes, I'm very
Yes.
ready for some girl talk. So some of your classics include husband replacement therapy.
HRT, husband replacement therapy. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. Well, I'm definitely on that one. Yeah, and how to kill your husband. So the
Yes.
obvious question,
Hi, my husband's alive.
oh, your husband's alive. Oh, yeah, they are, by the way, in case anyone's worried. It's a little bit
So far.
tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
How much of your own experience feeds into what you write?
Well, I think all writers, we write because it's cheaper than therapy. You know.
You reckon?
Yeah, if I wasn't writing novels, I'd be lying on some shrink's couch, paying them to make them laugh. So why not put it all into a novel? No, if I have any gift as a writer at all, it's putting into words what women are thinking but not necessarily saying out loud.
Okay.
And also writing down the way women talk when there's no men around. Because as we were saying earlier when we were putting on a bit of slap, women are funny. And when you go on a girls' night out, you do have to be hospitalised from hilarity. And what we're good
Well, you
at...
do when you go out with a joined friend of ours called Miss Helen Lederer.
Miss Helen, absolutely, yes. But what I think what happens on a girls' night out, everyone's laughing hysterically. We strip off to our emotional undies in a psychological striptease that reveals all. And it's incredibly funny, self-deprecating, candid, confessional. And then at some point we're all hugging and crying. Yeah.
And drinking.
And drinking, yes. And it's also so much cheaper than having a nervous breakdown or going to
It is.
into a funny farm. So it's very, very therapeutic and important. And so that's all I try and do is write down the way women really do talk when we're being that honest with each other.
So for anyone who hasn't read it, husband replacement therapy.
Yeah.
You wanna share a bit?
I wrote that book because, I do all my research in a scientific, in-depth fashion over cocktails with girlfriends.
Yeah, best.
And what I realised is that a lot of my women friends were not having sex with their husbands because they were exhausted and furious. Because even though women make up 50% of the workforce, we're still doing, I'd say, 99.9% of all the housework and all the childcare.
Right, I think we sold ourselves a bum deal.
We
So my
did.
mother never went to work. I couldn't wait to go to work. But what actually happened was you do all the jobs they used to do
And
plus
work.
earn the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we thought
That's
we were
what's
going to have it
actually
all,
happened.
and we just
Yeah.
ended up doing it all.
Doing it all. Yes.
Yeah. And, when a woman's worked all day, come home at night,
Yeah.
defrosted the chops, cooked the dinner, found the lost sports kit, put the washing on, done the ironing, helped with the homework, nagged about the teeth cleaning, put the cat out. By the time she gets into bed, the one thing she's fantasizing about is sleep. And then she gets the hand. And you think, oh, no, not the hand. Men make horror movies called The Blob and The Thing. Women would make the hand. And you think, here's this guy, he hasn't talked to you all day or helped you around the house, and he thinks you're in the mood for love, and you're in the mood for running him through with a carving knife, right? But he hasn't noticed. He's just prodding away at your clitoris as though it's an elevator button. He's running late for a meeting. And you're like, take the stairs. Right? But, I actually have got a fantastic sex tip for anyone who wants to get out of sex with their partner. Just when you feel the prod of his member in your back. You tell him the tax department rang and want to audit his accounts because not only will he lose the urge for sex, but he won't be able to sleep. No snoring either. Result.
Well, did you never go to the 2-bedroom option? I've done that once. I think it's a very good way to survive a relationship.
If you have another bedroom,
yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you could just train your husband to help around the house more. Because sometimes men say to me, oh, you feminists want so much. I'm like, do we? We'd like equal pay.
Yeah.
We'd like men to do a little light housework, which is, as I said, in their interest, because no woman, it's scientifically proven that no woman ever shot her husband while he was vacuuming. We'd like them to do the odd sensitive thing with snow peas in the kitchen, because the weight of a woman's heart is through her stomach, not aiming too high. I always say to men, what does a woman really want in bed? Breakfast and a really good book. But talking about bed too, it'd be great if they worked out that Mutual Orgasm's not an insurance company. That'd be really nice as well. And I don't think that's asking for a lot, do you? No.
No, I don't. But can I put something else to
Go
you?
on.
You are my little Bridget Jones, right? And you were married to a human rights lawyer.
I was, yes.
How much Bridget do you think there is in you, or the other way round?
Ah, well, I'm not as sort of kooky as Bridget. I don't fall over and fall flat on my face every time I'm trying to do anything practical or useful. But I do remember meeting Helen Fielding long time ago and talking to her about what it was like being married to a human rights lawyer. And then suddenly Mark Darcy appeared. Well, why not? It's a great comic foil
And-
to have a character like that. And what I would say about being married to a human rights lawyer, I think it made my situation so much more difficult, is that you could never get the high moral ground. Because when I'd say to my husband, can you come in here and change this nappy? He'd say, well, I'd like to, but I have 350 people on death row. What could I say? although after a year I started
I'm
saying...
sorry to laugh.
I know, I
That
can't-
is a very serious
No, after a year I
situation to
started
be
saying,
in.
oh, let them die. And after the second baby I was like, I'm going to go there and kill them myself. Human rights begins at home. So, there was a funny side to it, but Jeff definitely, and he will admit that now, was a
Yes.
total workaholic.
Yes.
Which is why our marriage unraveled in the end, because I was just a bit lonely. And yeah, but it did make it doubly hard because, as I said, I could never get the high moral ground.
No, you couldn't. But you had 2 children with him. One who's grown up to be quite famous actually lately. Your son Jules.
Yes, he's an autistic
He's an
actor.
autistic
Yeah.
actor. He's been in Holby City,
Yes.
amongst other things.
Yes.
How's he doing now? Are
Well-
we likely to see him something soon?
Well, he pops up now and again in Midsummer Murders and Endeavour, whatever. But unemployed actor is a tautology.
Well, I
Most
think
actors are employed.
95% of actors
I
are most of
know,
the time,
I
aren't
know.
they?
Especially
Yeah.
if you're neurodiverse, it's really hard to
Yeah.
find work. So I'll probably write a vehicle for him because my friend Sally Phillips has
Okay.
a child with Down syndrome, a son with Down syndrome.
Yes.
So we think we might get together and write a vehicle for our kids so that they've got something to star in. That's a little project we've got kicking
I think it would
away.
be very funny if you wrote it.
It would be.
Because
She's great as well.
I know you like to call yourself an author who is accidentally funny.
Yes.
I think you could easily be a stand-up comic.
Oh, that you're so lovely to say that.
But you are very naturally
Oh,
funny.
I think it's I can shoot from the lip. Like I call it
Shoot from
I
the
call it the black belt in tung fu. And I think it's because when I was growing up in Australia with all these beautiful young surfy girls, I grew up on the beaches of Sydney.
Yes.
And the surfy girls were so stunning, the long, like you, they look exactly like you. Long blonde
I
hair.
don't think so.
Tall, slim, beautifully proportioned figures, gorgeous eyes, everything about them. They were like Barbie dolls made flesh. And I'm a bonsai brunette whose bra cups do not runneth over. So I thought, unless I develop some other skill, the Pope would be ringing me up for tips on celibacy. So I learned to kind of be witty and fire out one-liners just so the boys would notice me, just so I'd get laid, basically.
So when did you first get laid?
Well, I wrote a whole book about it. My first novel came out when I was 17 or 18, called Puberty Blues. And
Yes.
it's all about young girls losing our virginity in the back of panel vans in the beach culture. It was quite a brutal, sexist culture, actually. The guys were so sexist, they used to get us to cut their name out in paper, sticky tape it to our stomachs,
Of
then
who got who?
sunbake so we get a tan tattoo in the shape of their name. So if I ever get cancer, I'll have a melanoma called Bruce. I'll have to have like a Bruce-ectomy to
So
get
you
rid of it.
actually had Bruce
Yeah.
cut out.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so everyone would know this belongs to Bruce.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that is a sexist
Right?
culture.
So sexist.
And you had a little bikini on, and you
Yeah.
thought this was cool because
Oh, yeah.
I belong to Bruce.
Yes, because it was women were second-class
old were you?
citizens. We were 13. Became a surfy girl at 13.
Wow.
So, and they were also the sort of guys who thought sex drive meant doing it in the car. Are British guys like that? Where'd you lose
Oh,
your
yeah,
virginity?
no, I definitely did it in a car.
In a
I
car?
think most British girls of my age will have done it in a car.
I've worked out.
But I wasn't on a beach, no.
I've worked out why men like to have sex in the car.
Why?
The
It's very
s-
uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's the little sign on the rear vision mirror that says objects in this mirror may appear larger than they are. Don't you think?
I had never thought of that, but I
Yes,
think
it
that's
came to me one
clearly
day.
why.
It came to me one day when I wasn't coming. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, in a car at 17. Ugh, come on, people.
Right.
And
yeah.
also, I don't know about you, but I mean, I came from a very sort of strict Catholic house. I would have taken someone to my parents. Didn't know my own place till I was 23.
Oh yes, I know. Well, but mind you, that's why we all left home young, because you couldn't have sex and do drugs at home. The thing, my generation, we've been too tolerant of our children. Like I keep saying, out the door by 24. Hello, please leave home.
Have you been strict? Because I have a boomeranger. My daughter is now 28 and back with me with her boyfriend in tow, who is 30. And
How's
I'm
that
loving
going?
it.
Are you loving it?
I love it. I
Oh,
hate
that's
my own
good.
company.
Oh, don't say that.
No, I do. It's terrible, but it's very interesting because, we're talking about therapy. And this show to me is like therapy because sometimes I shove therapists in and they give me free therapy.
Great.
One of the things is you have to learn to become comfortable sitting in your uncomfortable space.
Yes.
My comfortable space is relationships and people. Tell me about your new boyfriend, because it was a very lovely story the way you met him, and he is a lovely Irishman.
He is.
Of which
Well,
I'm obviously fond with a name like mine.
Exactly. Yes, the Celtic streak. Well, look. I write satire, and I'm tongue in cheek, and I'm a bit sardonic and not cynical, but I don't suffer from an irony deficiency. So for me to have this very romantic story to tell is a little bit. I'm kind of allergic to that kind of cutesy pie romantic stuff. But this is what happened to me. I was breaking up with my husband, and I was jogging through Regent's Park, as you do, jogging out the anxiety.
Yeah.
And I just heard this beautiful music. And I looked over, and there's this lovely man sitting under a tree playing Bach in the park. He's a classical guitarist.
Bark in the park.
Bach in the park. I know, it's so
This is
corny.
title of a movie.
And I went over and said to him, that's the most beautiful interpretation of that Bach piece. And then he started talking, the lilting Irish accent. And when you meet someone and you just never want to stop talking to them, it was like that. It was the French call it a coup de foudre. My French accent's terrible. The bolt of lightning.
I think bolt of lightning isn't often, but when it happens, it's instantaneous.
Yeah, and we've been inseparable ever
Have
since.
you?
Yes. And he's younger than me. He's about 8 years younger. And see, I've had 2 alpha husbands, but Brian is a beta male, and beta is better for me.
For
because
alpha.
I'm quite alpha.
Yeah.
So, he adores me, doesn't bore me, and does all my chores for me.
Oh,
He likes to shop,
wow.
mop, cook, clean. He's a real nurturer. And when I give talks in schools to young women now, I always say to them, choose your partner carefully. Because if you choose an alpha male, for sure, if the child is sick or whatever, you'll be the one who has to pull back. But if you choose a man who wants to put you on the pedestal, and doesn't expect you to clean it while you're up there, to choose a bloke like that.
I remember when my first husband, my daughter got chicken pox, and he said, I said, well, we'll have to split it, right? Because we're both working. And he went, but I've got a job. And I went, well, what do you think I've got?
Oh, yeah, it's outrageous.
It was a different time, really.
Yes, and also I know so many men who say they can't help. They'd like to help more around the house, but they can't multitask.
Yeah.
Now, this is a biological cop-out because not one man would have any trouble multitasking at, say, a menage a trois or an orgy. He'd be twirling and tweaking. It would all be going on.
Find a use for his hands
So
at that
he would
point.
find a use for his hands. So that does not wash, I'm afraid. Yeah.
So Kathy Lette, in between Bruce, who we will blame for the melanoma if it ever, please God, it never comes.
Yes.
And your current relationship with the lovely Brian.
Yes.
What have been your up and down, most highest points and lowest points with men during that time? Because you've clearly had a lot of relationships in between then and now, right?
I think.
Well, not a lot.
Oh yeah, I would say a lot. Yeah. Don't make me count them. But don't forget, I'm a writer, so I go into Margaret Mead mode. I'm an anthropologist on L plates. Like I have to have affairs and experiences so I've got something to write about. Yes, exactly. No, I think a low point for me was after I left the surfy world.
Yeah.
These brutal kind of very tribal men who just saw women as a life support system to a pair of breasts. I moved into the inner city of Sydney thinking the men there would be more enlightened, and I thought, well, in Sydney, mind you, I tried to find a man who wasn't married or gay or married and gay, which happens in Sydney. or just one who didn't think monogamy was something you make dining room tables out of. That would have been nice. But that's when I first became aware of the double standards when it comes to sexuality. That a man who's sexually active, love God, stud muffin, Lothario Romeo, or as we say in Australia, a spunk rat.
A spunk rat.
But
I
a
like
woman
that
with the
one.
same sexual appetites dismissed as a slut, a tart, a tramp, a mole. And I don't think that's really changed so much.
No.
It's like when the guy expects you to be so virginal. He's like, oh, darling, am I the first man to make love to you? To which the woman replies, of course. I don't know why you men keep asking the same silly question.
Do you know how I got friendly with Ulrika Johnson? Because I got furious over exactly that.
Right.
I heard someone call her a 7x4. They called her a 4x4. Sorry, and
What's a
a 4x4. She had 4 kids by 4 different men.
Oh, for
They said,
goodness
"Oh, there
sake.
she's the 4x4." And
What-
I just turned around and said, "If Rod Stewart was here, would you be calling him a 7x4?"
Yeah.
Seriously?
Or Mick Jagger or Boris
Yeah,
Johnson or
yeah,
any of those people. Yeah. So
Unbelievable.
it's outrageous. So that's
Yeah.
and that's when all my feminism really started kicking off.
Yeah.
When I started seeing these disparities in society. And then shortly after that I moved to LA. And of course moving to LA I discovered a whole other area of prejudice women have to suffer, which is facial prejudice, that we get judged on
I'm
our
a little
looks.
bit into that one.
Are you? See, I'm
See,
not.
I've had a facelift. I
You
have
look
a lot
amazing,
I
but-
have a lot of Botox.
But the-
I wouldn't say I wouldn't have another one.
I understand why women aging to women
It's
like,
about how you feel about yourself.
but it's also the societal pressures that aging to women is like kryptonite to Superman. Show me a woman who's happy with her age, and I'll show you like the electroconvulsive therapy scorch marks, because we get judged on our looks in a way that men don't. Like women
That's
my
true.
age, I'm written off as an old hag, a bag, a crone. Whereas, a guy my age, is our age, well, I'm older than you, is a silver fox. You never hear a man dismissed as mutton dressed as ram, ever.
no, you do not.
And so there's a lot we have to fight against. We spend so much time and angst worrying about, bingo wings and cankles and whatever, what's that, waddles. And men never give it a moment's thought.
I think some of them do.
But they don't have to, because we don't judge them in that way. Whenever they do research about what men and women find attractive in each other, women always put humour first.
But it's true.
And then looks last. And men always, heterosexual men, on average, always put looks first.
Yeah, they do.
So that's a whole other area of sexism. I mean, trying to date in LA, oh my God. Unless you're silicone from tonsils to toenails, no one will even look at you. You've got to have those breasts that arrive 5 minutes before you do with their own postcode. You've got to have the lips where, it looks as though she's got a vagina sutured to her face. And that, the collagen, they're basically taking the fat out of their bottoms and injecting into their lips, so they're literally talking out of their ass. And then you have to wax all your body hair off. I mean, I just think, why? I like my pubic hair. It's like having a little pet in my pants.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. I think that should come off. Yeah.
Oh, you think, we've got different
Absolutely
view
come
on all
off.
of that?
We've got a different view on that.
Well, my philosophy is that women are each other's human Wonderbras, uplifting, supportive, and making each other look bigger and better. Now, I would be totally flat without my female friends, right?
Yeah.
And I've got a Wonderbra on now, and it's called that because when you take it off, you wonder where the hell your breasts went. But
I'm the same.
Never wonder where your girlfriends have gone. Keep them close.
I mean, how would you sum up life in your 60s compared to life in your teens or 20s? Or what would you tell your younger self now?
Well, I think actually post-menopause is the best time of a woman's life.
Why?
Okay, well, I think for women, life is in 2 acts. The trick is surviving the interval, which is the menopause, which is horrible, where you sweat more than Donald Trump doing a Sudoku. But once you get through that phase, I think something wonderful happens to you, that a kind of, you said, I'm 50 gene kicks in. And for the first time in a woman's life, you no longer care what people think about you.
You don't actually.
Well, look, the other great thing about being especially post-60, I think you come into your sexual prime.
Do you?
And the reason I think you do is because good sex is about being relaxed. And
Yeah.
at this age, you are relaxed in your body. You know yourself well. You know what you like. You're not afraid to ask for it. And take all that angst when you're younger and you're holding your stomach in and you're worrying about wrinkles and crinkles. You just don't care about that anymore. So for me, I think I'm having the best sex of my whole life. I mean, I can't believe I'm even vertical right now.
Do you hear that, Brian? She's having the best sex of her entire life.
Because, there is this pleasure gap. We talk about the pay gap.
Yeah.
And we talk about the glass ceiling and the domestic ceiling at home.
Yeah.
But there's also the pleasure gap that for every 5 orgasms a heterosexual man has, a heterosexual woman has 1. The only women having the same pleasure parity as heterosexual men are lesbians, which is only a slip of the tongue, obviously, So, but I think a lot of that is about women not feeling confident enough to say what they want. And at this age, you just, like, if not now, when?
Well, precisely.
Right?
I do feel that. How many summers, how many years? When you're healthy, at least.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And when you,
Well, that's
And
why I think this second act for women is so sensational. Because, first of all, no period cramps, no pregnancy scares. You've got all that tampon money to spend. And you've cut the psychological umbilical cord that kept your kids tethered to you by the heart and the apron strings. They've left home.
Yeah.
You have more time.
Yeah.
And you can put yourself first for the first time in your life. And we've got HRT, which is like rocket fuel. And, most divorces in Britain are initiated by women. And the peak time is when the husband retires. Because, of course, they need their own hormone replacement therapy because their testosterone goes down, their estrogen comes up. They want to stay at home and nest. And women are like,
just buy them a shed.
but no.
I mean, but that's true, isn't it?
know.
The boring
But also,
men's
we've
shed club.
we've
There is
nested.
one.
We want to climb Everest and go up the Amazon. So just do it,
Yeah.
Go
And
forth and be fabulous. That's my message.
could you imagine ever marrying again?
Not really. No, because I
Do
do.
you spend some time apart? Or
I
you
do
live
understand why
together?
people get married. Of course, it's a public statement of a private passion,
Yeah.
especially when you've got children.
Yes.
But I don't feel the need to. I'm perfectly happy. So why not just go on enjoying life the way we are? But do you want to get married again?
I would never say never. I would never say never. What is the bravest thing you've ever revealed about your relationships through your writing?
The bravest thing, well, I think the hardest thing I ever wrote about was having an autistic child.
Yes.
And because, and I think I'm not,
Because you're ambassador of the Autistic
I
Society,
am,
aren't you?
but also parents of special needs kids,
Mm-hmm.
their divorce rates are higher, their
a
unemployment
strain.
rates are higher, their depression rates are higher. So, it's hard enough having a neurotypical child. If you have a neurodiverse child, it's like having 10 children in one. Yeah. And it does add a huge strain to any relationship. Not that I'm saying putting any blame on my son for my marriage falling apart, absolutely not. But it does add extra pressure. And I didn't write about Jules being autistic till he was 21 because I didn't want to invade his privacy. Mm-hmm. But I said, but it was such a relief to come out about it and talk about how it had effect on my relationship. Because
and did you ask Jules if that was okay?
I did ask him, and he was like, he read what I was writing, and he was like, well, it's always good to shine a light into a dark area, Mum.
Wow.
And I'm so glad I did it because, of course, it explained to people why I'm often deranged. They could probably think,
I don't
that's
have that
why.
excuse, and I'm often deranged, so I wouldn't worry.
But also it gave comic camaraderie and comfort to a lot of other people. I wrote 2 books with a theme, The Boy Who Fell to Earth and Best Laid Plans. And I wrote it to help other parents when you're going through that. Sometimes you just want to know that you're not alone.
Did you get a lot of feedback from people on that?
A lot of feedback, of course, yes. And it taught me a good lesson, that it's always better to be vulnerable and show your vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are a strength. But
superpower.
It is a superpower, yeah. And to share these things is so important so that you can actually articulate what other people are going through and might not necessarily have the skills to put into words. And that's one gift I do, the only gift I have. So
you have a new book coming out very shortly, don't you? Do you want to tell us about that one?
Well, it's out right now, actually.
Oh, it's actually out, sorry.
It's called The
It's coming out
Revenge
soon.
Club.
Yes.
And it's about 4 middle-aged women who take revenge on the men who sabotage their careers for the crime of being middle-aged.
Oh.
It's a fun rom. I think women are drawn to revenge, and I was thinking why. And I thought, well, revenge, it's sweet, but it's totally non-fattening. Revenge is very cathartic. It is. It's a way of moving on once you've scored it. And my revenges are funny. Like, when they wanted to take, in the book, they want to take revenge on the men who've sabotaged their careers. They do things like they put Nair hair remover in their shampoo bottles, and they put Retin-A in their face cream, things like that, like wicked, mischievous ways of getting back at them, And part of the reason I wrote this book is that I do think...
Have you ever done any of these things?
Oh, yeah, of course I have.
Have you?
Yeah. You better stay on my good side, girl. But part of the reason I wrote this book is that I was feeling I was being put out to career pasture. I was feeling that I was being told that I'd passed my amuse-by date, even though I was feeling in the
Do
peak,
we have
peak
an
of...
amuse-by
Well,
date?
apparently we do. Because, I was feeling invisible.
Yeah.
And it's not just me imagining women our age are invisible. A couple of years ago, MI5 said they wanted to recruit middle-aged women as spies because nobody sees us. Nobody sees us.
I'm going to MI5. That's my next career move.
I can see you in a beret, a French beret and a trench coat. Mm-hmm. Yes. I like writing about women this age because we've got such a hinterland. It's like this is what this podcast is about.
Exactly.
We've had the heartbreaks, the breakups, the promotions, the affairs, the betrayals, the lovers, the miscarriages, the abortions, the babies. We've done so much and we've got so much to say. So, I think we are, as I said earlier, at the peak of our productivity and our creativity and our sexuality. So why not celebrate all of that?
Yeah, I'm coming up.
Back again with Carl Stanley, my personal makeup artist. And I want you to talk to me and Kathy about a couple of things. Why do you think women wear makeup? I'm going to tell you something a bit weird, and I think this is all in my head and you're going to laugh. I just think I look much different with it on or with it off.
Oh my God, she looks completely different with no makeup on. I mean...
2 hours this morning, was it, Carl?
No, actually, we had about 20 minutes because you were very, very busy in meetings. But for you, and I think it's probably, we've only met today, but we do know people in common.
You're going to swap numbers.
But
I've done that.
But for you, like in the day, you don't bother, and that's not a you can't be bothered thing. It's like you'll do a bit of mascara and maybe a bit of
Well, you say that.
something.
I have to go to work 4 days a week.
I'm not saying that.
I don't bother.
She's not feral, everybody. but it's like
Do you use deodorant?
But when you're doing this, for example, it's your presenter's thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
This
like
is
whatever.
our professional. So
Yeah,
in the same
exactly.
way,
It's our professional
the day
faces.
I'm writing and I'm running around doing mother stuff, I wouldn't wear. I always wear a slash of lippy. But if I'm going out, definitely, because it's a bit of armour, isn't it?
Also, it's interesting with makeup as well, like how people use it, because what I got really, really fed up of many years ago is that if you're at a party and people don't know who you are, what you do, people don't know what you do. Oh, what do you do for a living? And you say, oh, I'm a makeup artist. Straight away, they want you to tell them one product that will make them look like
difference.
Cindy Crawford in 1986. Do you know what I mean? And it's not going to happen.
Well, now you know what to say. The dimmer switch.
Well, you know what I said to someone once? I said, I'm a prostitute. And it was just tumbleweed. Right? Well, I think you have to say sex worker today. So I said I'm a sex worker. A rent boy, actually, in those days.
Oh, good for you.
And anyway, I still use that line. Now, I've not realised that I've got older because, and someone just looked at me, aren't you a little bit too old for that? And I just snapped back. I just went,
welcome to
I'm
our
young to
world.
somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Because
it's like, and that's the thing. But, I think getting back to the makeup thing, it's sort of like everyone is so sort of like suckered into like the advertising and all of this stuff about this product's going to do this and this product's going to do, and it's nonsense. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
it's absolutely.
The best makeup is good sex.
Completely.
Because it boosts endorphins.
Completely.
Which is good for your brain and your skin and your metabolism and everything like that. So you can say you're a prostitute, a sex worker, and that's your top makeup tip.
Well,
and doing the horizontal tango, it's much more fun than Scrabble. You know.
Don't want to be
bingo.
kissed like you're
It
their
depends
maiden
if you're on a
aunt, do
triple
you?
word score.
Oh, yeah, that's
though,
true.
doesn't
That's
it?
so true. I'd rather have a triple orgasm than a triple word score.
You don't want much out of life, do you,
No.
Kathy Lette?
Right, Kathy Lette.
Yes.
This is called my Suddenly Single Honesty Box. We don't leave you hanging. You have to answer a question. I think, considering how honest and open and fun you are, these are a bit tame. But I'm going to give you this question. One to you and one to me. We all answer it.
Okay.
Okay. You go first because you're our guest.
Mine says plastic surgery, yes or no. I would say no, just read between my lines.
Mine says, complete this sentence, love is. I would say laughter. I know that sounds a bit
It's lovely.
whatever, but it's true. If
No,
you're not
that's-
laughing, what's the point?
I think that is lovely, actually.
Yeah, love is laughter.
Yeah, yeah. Love is laughter. That
And
is really
picking
true.
dirty pants up.
Oh, well, did you have to spoil it? That was
You were
all
doing so
romantic and
well.
lovely. And
I'm a
then-
realist.
Agreeing.
I'm a cynic and a realist.
Oh, well, mine is the same because it's how important is laughter to any relationship. Yep, you cannot be with a man that bores you.
No.
I once dated a very nice man, but all he wanted to talk about was stonework.
Oh,
And I, honestly, one night I said to him, could you just shut up and let's go to bed?
yeah.
No, he's still going on about the brickwork.
My
It
only
had to
commandment
end.
is thou shalt not bore.
Thou shalt not
Not
bore.
bore, yeah.
Yes, that should be the 11th commandment.
Yes, it should.
It should.
And you guys could never bore. You're fabulous. This is like the Wimbledon of wit with banter lobbing back and forth. Look at it. We need one of those contraptions that says how fast the balls are going. How fast are those lobs going?
But you do
It's so
have
much
to remember
fun.
that he would rather go to Dignitas and end up living with me. It's not a true fact.
I know,
I'll
but
stand
I'm almost feeling guilty for the fact that, we sent your relatives to Botany Bay 200 years ago because
Yeah,
it's
they
an
probably-
absolute pleasure to have you back
Oh,
in
you're
this
so
country.
lovely.
You are actually a Brit now, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I've got a British passport. But
Yeah.
whenever anyone condescends to me about my Australia and our penal
Yeah,
past,
yeah.
I always tell them what my grandma said when I told her I was moving to London. She was like, "Oh, Kath, you can't possibly go and live in London. That's where all those terrible convicts come from." And they've got no retort.
That's hilarious.
I know, right?
That's great.
And on that note, thank you for watching another episode of Suddenly Single. And please click the subscribe button if you don't want to miss any great more episodes.
Let's go swing off a chandelier now
That
with
was
a
really-
cocktail between our
That
teeth.
was
yes.
really
I
funny.
really fancy a
That's
dirty
where-
martini
that's where all
tonight.
those-
Terrible convicts. It's a classic.
Come